we're going to talk a little bit about audio in Final Cut 10, and no one on this planet knows more about it than this guy to my right. Please welcome Michael Wohl.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you guys all for showing up here. So I did just write this book called Final Cut Pro X Advanced Editing, and to be honest, it was really quite a challenge to identify what we would qualify as advanced, because judgments aside, the intention of Final Cut Pro 10 is really to create an environment that doesn't feel like you need to be an advanced editor, right? It's trying to make it more accessible. It's trying to take the things that were traditionally very complicated, that took a lot of steps, and simplify them. And, to professionals who get paid by the hour, this is really annoying, myself included. But to the millions and millions of users who are going to replace us when we're all dead and gone, it's going to be really good for them. So, we have to sort of accept that. And in general, the idea, again, of coming up with what was an advanced set of topics really came down to, let's just go into some of the nuances of, the program is designed to do a lot of things for you automatically, but there is a lot of manual control if you want it. And so and the reason audio just sort of happened spontaneously, just because there was a couple audio chapters in the advanced book that I thought were had some interesting topics. I don't know, you guys will be the judge, maybe not. As I was preparing this afternoon, I was like, I hope this isn't boring. So I'll just try and tell jokes to keep it from being boring. Anyway, so I just a collection of some of the ways to take advantage of the audio features in Final Cut 10 that go beyond the obvious stuff. There's all this built-in audio analysis footage that you've got. If in here, there's this audio enhancements area, and it will automatically identify, essentially, get the loudness to a good volume, identify any background noise or hum, and it'll remove that stuff automatically for you. It pretty much does this without you even having to think about it, which is so nice. And generally the quality of the algorithms and stuff are good, so that you're not generating more noise in attempting to clean things up. But there, of course, are going to be places where you're going to want to get deeper and customize things. And fortunately, we do still have access to all the Logic plugins. So when you're dealing with audio, you really do have a tremendous amount of rich control based on those same plugins that we used in Soundtrack Pro, or, of course, in Logic itself. And I'm going to get to those in a second. I first was just going to talk a little bit about track management, because one of the other things that I think is kind of cool is that, when I first saw this interface where the audio and video were combined here, let me just make the audio track a little bit bigger there so you can see it side by side here. Let's just go to mid-size there. The idea of combining our audio and video into single objects when we're moving them around, it's like, well, it's convenient so that you never get into that case of worrying about if things are out of sync, or if which audio clip is associated with which video clip. It's a great advantage in that regard. But as an advanced user, I very quickly okay, that's nice, but I want more control. I want to be able to manipulate my audio separately. I want to be able to access the details of that file. And of course you can, I think I've actually got the wrong project open. Let me open up a different project here. It's got a couple more specific examples. But first, just to talk about the tracks themselves. So, for any audio clip, I turned off the sound. I turned it off. So this is a terrible example because there's nobody talking. What we've got here is we've got a shot with a variety of different audio tracks. If I was to edit this shot into my project here, I'll just select my little range there and press E to add it to my project here. It comes in just as one audio chunk. But if I look up here in the viewer, in the inspector, that I can actually see that there is 4 channels here if I've got access to. This is arranged as 2 monos and a stereo track. And you can alternately turn that into 4 monos, or if you can make it LRCS if it was a surround track that was those 4 tracks. So if you know what the source footage is intended to be, you can very quickly set that. Or you can just go in here and identify which individual track you might want and enable or disable specific tracks. and this will apply to whatever's going on with that track whenever you use it. And fortunately, this can be done at any point in the process. So, you don't need to decide this before you edit your clip into your project. Once you've got your clip in your project, later you can be like, oh, you know what? I've got a camera mic and a boom in there, and they're both being mixed, and that camera mic sounds like crap, and you can hear me cursing at the, making fun of the talent. We need to get rid of that track. So at any point, you can go in there and just identify which is that track, and you notice up here, I think I've actually maybe 5 is a little better. I don't remember which was which here. So here I've got dual mono, and I think this will be audibly different. But
good.
Okay.
Yes.
Where's all this
and
stuff
there's
come from?
raspberries and blueberries.
yeah, this is probably not the greatest shot, but that's the boom mic, and then this is the camera mic, which you can hear is tinnier, and
Yes. And there's raspberries and blueberries.
the subjects are farther away, and so you're not going to necessarily know which is which without listening, but you see all I'm doing is by placing my playhead over there, it's automatically skimming the track that's underneath, and if my playhead is over there, my cursor's over there, and I press the space bar, it's going to play just that track or just that track. And so you can quickly identify which is the one you want to keep, turn off the one you don't want to keep, and then you don't need to do anything else. Like, it's already done. That's just metadata associated with the clip, so that from now on, when you play that clip, you're only going to get the good track. And that's convenient. But even still, when we get into the timeline, you may want to manipulate those individual tracks more, exercise more control over the individual tracks. So in addition to being able to just turn them on and off like that, we can also expand them. And this works in 2 stages, which I think is also, again, a really nice way to treat it, because sometimes really all I care about, let me just turn off that audio skimming, sometimes all I care about is just separating the audio, the bulk of audio stuff and the bulk of video stuff, so that we could use maybe one piece of audio for an alternate close-up, or you use a piece of audio to associate with a different shot, or to trim it in a different way. And we can do that very easily by breaking that audio apart. Right, by saying, I'm sorry, actually, I shouldn't say break apart, because that's next, but detaching the audio. And this command, detach audio, takes the audio and the video and separates them into separate objects. By default, they're linked. It's a connected clip. So by default, it will still work, just like it would if it was a single clip, except that it's going to allow me to move those things around separately. So, there's no harm done by breaking it, by detaching it like that. But if I wanted to, I can move that and put it in a different place, or make editorial adjustments to it, or whatever else I might want to do to that audio clip to just separate it and use it, treat it differently than my video. And now we get back into a more familiar model from people working in traditional systems like Final Cut Classic, or Avid, or any system, or Premiere, where we're used to having our traditional track-based thing where our audio and video can be separate and we can manipulate them individually. But further, we can even go one step further here, which is to say, take that audio clip and now, break that up into its individual pieces, each individual tracks. And when I do that, now that audio is going to be broken up into 4 specific tracks, and you'll notice 2 of them are dimmed, and that's because those 2 are disabled up here. Well, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can actually see you, because I've broken it apart now. You can't see that channel configuration. But when I disabled it, I disabled those first 2, and they now show up disabled down here. But the idea here is, now that I have access to each of those individual tracks, I can manipulate them all I want, and it gives you that power that appears to be absent when you're first working with the tool. And then, of course, if I wanted to recombine them, I could. I don't remember the shortcut. I just tried to press Option C. What's the compound clip? There it is, G, right, grouping. And that will basically collapse it back down into a single element, and I could conceivably do that with the video and audio as well, to bring it back down, to collapse it back down to, that simplified view. So again, just to remind you that power is available to you if you want it. If you don't want it, you never need access to it. If you don't need to think about it, the beautiful thing is you won't be distracted by it. I don't want to look at 4 tracks, and in other systems, and you've got 4 tracks of audio, you're going to have to see that and move it around, and every time you make a change, you have to deal with all those tracks. Here, you don't need to unless you want to, and that's, I think, a really nice idea, that the power is there when you need it. Further, getting into filters, right? So there is this built-in equalizer that comes with every clip has a built-in equalizer, and there are a series of presets in here that you can quickly apply. Nice, easy things like a hum reduction or a bass reduction or a treble reduction. These are very simple little presets that you can do, but you can also get into a full customizable key equalizer by just clicking that little button there. And you'll see that little button. If you're not familiar with that, that's a really, really cool button in Final Cut Pro X. Because, and yes, I call it X, because it is, that's what will open up the custom interface. So if you ever have any audio filters and you see that, you can open that up and you can get access to, in this case, the built-in graphical equalizer, or as you'll see in a minute when you've got Logic effects, you'll get access to the original Logic interface, which is often much more powerful than a couple of sliders or dials. So here we've got that setting here, and if I apply one of those presets, it's going to automatically just adjust these things as they are, or I can adjust them manually. I can make changes to individual bands, or I can grab a group of bands. If I just click and drag arrange there, now I can move a group of bands all at once. And again, so the idea being that if you never need to see this, you don't need to. You don't need to access it, you don't need to worry about it. But if you do want to make your own custom controls, you can get in here and be very precise about what you're doing. And in fact, you can even change this from a 10-band equalizer to a 31-band equalizer, which is enough to intimidate any client. And then you can make adjustments as you want, and facilitate it however you need to. One little disadvantage is that when you change between the 31 and the 10, it does reset the thing, which is unfortunate, but I guess there was no way to translate that. That math was too hard. So anyway, the 31-band equalizer is honestly probably overkill for most situations, but if you're dealing with a particular hum or a little bit of noise that you're trying to eliminate, and you want to just find that hum and you identify and lower just the bands that have that hum in it or whatever, that little noise that you're trying to eliminate, you can get really pretty precise. And again, this is just using the most basic equalizer built in. If we go down to our effects, you'll see that there are a whole bunch of other cool equalizers. There is basically the fat EQ, the channel EQ, and the linear phase EQ, and the auto filter. These are all Logic plugins. I'm just going to go up in the channel EQ, because this was always my favorite in Soundtrack Pro. And you see when I apply that filter, what happens is the filter gets added to the inspector over here, and there's my channel EQ. And again, I can go to the defaults, and notice that we have quite a bit of defaults. A lot of these are for music, but not all of them. Some of them are for audio or dialogue and stuff. There's a telephone EQ or a make darker or hi-fi boost. There's a what do you call it? A phone filter to create something that sounds like what none of us know what phones sound like anymore, right? The filter should just make the sound drop out every few seconds, right? That would be the AT&T filter, right? I just love that it's 2012 and our telephones don't work anymore and we just tolerate it, It's so bizarre. At least they can text. All right. But anyway, all these presets again, but even again, more importantly than the presets is the custom UI. So click on this button here and it opens up that custom UI, which hopefully you're familiar with if you use Soundtrack Pro or Logic, because this is one of the really cool EQs in that Logic family that you can make really nice subtle adjustments. You can control the cue of an adjustment. I certainly do that in the middle there just so you can see. Like, I can say lower the midtones, but I want to limit exactly the cue of that, the range of frequencies. I can make a really nice little notch frequency and adjust that. You can do a whole lot of range of different types of adjustments simultaneously. And, it's a really powerful equalizer. But more importantly, one of the things I think is most useful about this, let me just reset that there. There's my reset button. Somewhere there's a reset, I know. Yeah, I don't remember. All right, anyway, this analyzer is a really cool tool because the analyzer does, if we play the clip here, I think the hard drive.
For a man that doesn't eat chicken liver.
What clip is my filter applied to? I should be paying attention here. It's the compound clip that I did over here. All right, so if we have this clip here and we play this. I'll just stop a second. You're seeing a little wave of the actual frequencies in use by that clip. And this can be really helpful for identifying, all right, I have to neutralize this here. Let's go back to, there it is, reset, thank you. Something like stage. Anyway, so when you play the clip, you can see the frequency. I'm actually going to mute it, so we're just looking So we can just watch and not listen here. And we can see where the bulk of frequencies are. And like, so for example, let's just go to a different clip here, and I think I've got a little bit more junk here in the bottom end of this. Notice, by the way, I can have these separately open, but I don't need that right now. So let's turn on that analyzer, play the clip here. And you can see here, this is what I like noticing. See this little slope down there in the low end? What that's showing me is that there is a bunch of junk, a bunch of noise down there in the low end, which may or may not be audible depending on the speakers you're looking at. But I can see there's absolutely no way that part of my human voice, part of the signal that I want is going to be down there. So it's a pretty clear indication that I want to roll that off, right? And I just grab that and pull that down to roll that off, or you can actually even click that little button there to add a full roll off down to 0 there, or down to negative infinity. And now when I set that to post EQ, when I play that, it's going to basically completely eliminate that area, which is
I'll have more.
so that it's completely eliminated, and you can see visually the result. And so, I like the combination of using the visual tools and using the obviously your ears and the speakers you're listening to, but having a little tool like that analyzer, I think, is just really powerful, and it's available. You just have to know where to find it. And just, quickly, a couple other really cool filters, there are, well, just quickly about the EQ, the other thing that they build in is a bunch of these presets, less bass, less treble, muffled, and these are things that, again, these are great for quick and dirty. I just want to do something once, I want to throw something on there and be done with it. But I think that for most professionals, these things are not going to be very useful. You're going to throw it on there and immediately you're going to want to customize it or adjust it. Well, in fact, you can, because if you apply that, like I just applied the muffled, there's the default muffled sound. Oh, I have my speaker off.
Offset by the Merlot balsamic reduction, and then the green tomato.
There's the muffled. But so like there it is. We don't really like that muffled. Of course, there may be some presets, but you can also go in there again, see that little icon, and then here is the low pass filter that's being applied, and we can customize that and make a much more precise adjustment as necessary for our particular case. And then quickly, just in the spaces, this is the reverb area, the same idea. You have a bunch of these preset reverbs, which are moderately useful, but really where it gets useful is when you go into this logic section. And so, like, for example, if I apply the space designer here, this space designer is a really fancy, high-end interface that'll impress your clients or your girlfriend or whatever you need. But more, in this case, actually, I want to talk about the presets, because this filter has built into it so many preset reverbs that, if you don't know about this, you might think that you're going to have to manually choose what sort of reverb you want. But there's these, literally thousands or maybe at least hundreds. I can't really count, but certainly a lot, right? There's a large number of different types of reverbs available in here, just in this one little preset. And you can choose Ohm Lobby or Michele's Nave, or I don't know what these things are, but you might, or you could try them trial and error and find the one that works for you, and then of course go in and tweak the signal specifically to modify it as you need to. All right. Last thing I'm just briefly going to talk about. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but the roles tool is also something that was implemented to allow you to overcome the fact that we don't have tracks. And I am certainly a proponent of tracks. I think tracks are very useful, and it does take some adjusting to get used to working in a situation where you don't have any. But it is fairly useful, this role-based control, because what it allows you to do is, I've got a little, stop that, go away. A little project here with a bunch of sound effects and music and stuff. And if I look at my roles area over here, I've already organized these things so that I've got my dialogue, I've got my effects, which are broken up into two different specialties: flower sounds or footsteps, there's ambiances, and then there's music somewhere. I thought there's music, maybe not in this project. Anyway, if I select one of these, I can see very quickly which tracks are identified as that particular thing. In this case, flower sounds or footsteps. We can highlight there on my footsteps. And then you can also just turn them on and off. So I can say, let me hear this without my footsteps. Or alternatively, let's hear just the footsteps. There's not actually a solo button, but I can just quickly simulate a solo button by identifying that. And now, when I play this, we're just getting We can hear how poorly they actually match. But then you add in your ambiances, and suddenly you don't notice so much. And of course, we probably want to adjust that level, but we don't need to do that now. And if we were to add our music, which I guess is currently set to dialogue, but we could manually set that to music too. You've got all those elements, and it's too loud. Let's actually just bring that down. Yeah, not what I wanted. Come on. There we go. You can easily manually do these controls, and you can actually do this stuff on the fly. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, you can. Where you can actually toggle these things in and out to listen to the basically. It's again not identical to working in a proper audio system, but it does provide a little bit of the control that we're used to. And I think that a lot of people don't bother trying because they don't realize that these things are available to you. And then the last thing I want to say is that you probably may have heard, that Apple leaked the feature set for the coming version, and one of the main things that they said was going to be a lot of audio enhancements. And so I think we can look forward to building on this and seeing a lot of really nice improvements to the audio feature set in the coming versions of this esteemed product. I'm going to be upstairs with a couple copies of my book later. If anybody wants to know what advanced means, you're welcome to come check it out. Anyway, back to you, Mike.